there, today I'm going to talk about Flat Earth because I woke up this morning and chose violence. Normally I'm disappointed in my fellow man when they resort to conspiratorial mumbo-jumbo because their prefrontal cortex has been gelatinized by scrolling through YouTube shorts for 17 hours a day. But for Flat Earthers, I'm not even mad, I'm just impressed. People have found a way to turn being unemployed into an Olympics-caliber idiot competition. To the untrained eye, this might look like casual stupidity, but don't be fooled, this is ranked competitive stupidity. Let's talk about it. Now, I could start strong by trying to say something smart to create contrast between me and the folks I'm arguing against, but if they're not going to use their brain to come up with the idea, why would I use mine in response? So instead I'm just going to sit there and do this. Okay, how much longer is there in the video? Oh my god. Okay, fine. I guess I'll explain the idea behind Flat Earth then. Okay, so as with much of Western civilization, our story begins with one woman's lie about an affair that got extremely out of hand. You guessed it, the Bible says something and people took it too seriously. Now, the stupidest part about the Flat Earth idea, besides how we find all the turtles and elephants to hold it up, would be absolutely everything else about it. Okay, I'm being unfair now. The idea actually almost sort of works if you isolate one variable at a time. The issue mainly is that any model of the Flat Earth can't account for everything we actually observe all at the same time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me give you a rundown of the model which the Flat Earthers broadly believe is true. Now, no matter how many caveats I put in here, there's going to be some fucking morbid chromosome exporter in the comments scraping the keyboard on their ass cheeks saying something about, "Oh, real Flat Earthers don't believe that version of the Flat Earth, we believe..." I don't care. Oh, but you're using the same old arguments that have worked for the last 12,000 years, yes. If you were a real Flat Earther, you'd commit to the bit and stop using technology that requires satellites to exist in order to work. You'd do it properly. You'd get lost in the wilderness and get eaten by a bear, alright? If you're that mad, make a response video and I'll touch myself while I'm watching it, alright? Remember folks, if you let them rage bait you, the conspiracists win. What the fuck was I saying? Okay, so Flat Earthers don't think the Earth looks like this, just to be clear. They think it looks like this. This is an azimuthal equidistant projection of the Earth centered on the North Pole. It's what the flag of the United Nations uses, and we all know that conspiracy people hate any kind of international cooperation, so that must mean it's something spooky. Actually, it's just a pretty cool map. This might actually be my favorite of all the map projections. It's a pretty good flag of the Earth, like it shows all the land masses where all the humans live. It's a little bit mean to Australia, but it's a pretty big dub to the Northern Hemisphere, so get fucked. The issue is that Flat Earthers think that this map is literal, which has to be a core feature of conspiracy people, right? The inability to see when something isn't meant to be fucking literal. It's like when people look at Egyptian hieroglyphs and extrapolate high technology and aliens and shit out of them. You know, they see a square etched into a wall in ancient Mesopotamia and assume it's a depiction of someone microwaving a fucking Hot Pocket. Anyway, according to Flat Earthers, the North Pole is in the middle and the South Pole is actually an ice wall that either holds all the water in and prevents the ocean from falling out, or separates the known world from more stuff that we don't know about yet. To be clear, I imagine that plenty of people are just using this as a fun world building project, but there are always people who take it far too goddamn seriously. You know, you go one layer out, there's some continents with spooky secret sounding names, that checks out. Further out, oh, there's Atlantis, check that off the conspiracy list. Then I found this map of apparently a fucking flat earth cinematic universe, which is actually kinda sick. It's got all the planets and shit on it, and there's a mention of the Anunnaki, check that off the conspiracy list. Why do Anunnaki aliens show up in every goddamn conspiracy theory? I'm surprised nobody's tried to convince me that the Anunnaki shot JFK with a Covenant plasma rifle. Are some people unable to just walk down the street without the Anunnaki trying to reveal ancient wisdom to them? Is this a problem that lots of people are having? Like, oh, science is wrong about magnets, or whatever the fuck. They also think the sun and the moon are much closer than they actually are, and they circle around the North Pole, and they change their distance from the North Pole, which is how the seasons work. See, they've got it all figured out. Stop laughing, it's not funny. Also, of course, the stars aren't stars, because that wouldn't work in this model, because space isn't real. See, if you did your own research and got a camera and zoomed in on a star, you'd see that they look like this. Oh, they're not the giant nuclear plasma spheres like Big Globe is telling you. No, they're clearly luminaries. Wow, wow, wowee, wow. Lesser minds would have assumed that their handheld camera maybe can't focus on something 12 light years away, but nope, they've got it figured out. Luminaries. Alright, based. Now, I bet you're wondering, what is actually verifiably wrong about the flat earth hypothesis? Like, how can you actually know that it isn't true? Good point, let's talk about that. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal, press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this. Alright, thanks, back to the video. Okay, so this is going to be a very non-exhaustive list, but let's just run down some of the main reasons that I thought of about why Flat Earth really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. First off, if you're looking out to the ocean and you see a ship, and the ship is moving away, when that ship disappears, it will disappear over the horizon from the bottom up, because it's going over the curvature. Flat Earthers will dispute this by saying that you can always zoom in on a ship and bring the whole thing back, but in every single online demonstration I've ever seen of this, they conveniently never keep the camera on the ship long enough to see whether it does keep getting smaller similar, or if it does indeed eventually disappear over the horizon from the bottom up. Spoiler warning, yes, it will always do that. Now, you can sometimes see things which are farther away than you would expect, given that the usual distance to the horizon is something like 3 miles for an average person if you're stood exactly at sea level. But if you can see something further away, it'll either be because the object you're looking at is really tall, so it peaks over the horizon, or you're really tall, like you're stood in an elevated position on top of a hill or something so you can see further, or there's certain atmospheric conditions that can happen which can cause refraction, meaning that you can actually see objects which are slightly behind the curve of the horizon because their light gets bent around the curvature, so it kind of looks higher up than it actually is. Now, if the Earth really was flat, you would be able to resolve things at much farther distances, and you'd be able to do it consistently. You'd literally be able to stand on the shores of Madagascar and see the Tibetan plateau looming behind India by zooming in on it. But you can't, because it's not f***ing flat, is it? Something else is that, in reality, different star constellations are visible from different parts of the world. In the most extreme case, a person can be standing at the North Pole, and a different person can be standing at the South Pole, and each person will see two completely different skies. If you think about that on a globe, that totally makes sense, but if they're standing on different parts of a flat plane, they should be looking at the same stars, so again, that makes no sense unless the Earth is curved. The way that the sun moves in the sky also can only be explained by the Earth being a rotating sphere with a distant sun. If the Earth really were flat, with a small sun and moon circling above, rather than the sun remaining the same size throughout the day and dipping below the horizon at the end of the day, you should actually see the sun get bigger as it gets closer to you and then get smaller as it moves further away. It would also never actually drop below the horizon, and the sun would also have to work more like a spotlight, given that when it's night time for your given location, the sun should still be in your line of sight. Now, you could come up with some solution that involves the sun angling itself differently and growing and shrinking over time, and that would work to correct for this, but only for one observer at a time. It can't reconcile every possible vantage point on Earth simultaneously. There's also weird instances where, for example, during the summer in the southern hemisphere, the light from the sun would have to wrap all the way around the edge of the Earth in order to create the 24-hour sun experienced in Antarctica, which we know happens because you're allowed to go there despite flat earthers being adamant that the UN has a navy patrolling the ice wall to keep people from finding the edge of the world. Also, just fundamentally, a flat Earth would collapse on itself gravitationally, meaning that flat earthers have to come up with some reason as to why the Earth doesn't do that, which to my knowledge means that most of them seem to deny the existence of gravity entirely. Most of them insist that what we call gravity is actually an effect caused by air pressure or electromagnetism or something else that the scientific community is somehow gravely misunderstood. Like if you ask them why a liquid always pools at the bottom of a glass and the top of it is always horizontal and completely flat, they like to repeat the catchphrase, water always finds its level, which is code for I'm gravely uneducated but want to have an opinion anyway. Anyway, none of them have been able to demonstrate how they think gravity works, which is a shame because hypothetically it should be pretty easy, or at least to disprove the way that we think it works. Like in the case of the air pressure hypothesis, for example, you could literally just put an object inside of a vacuum chamber and then let go of it and see what happens. Of course, we have done that. That experiment has been done probably millions of times at this point, but since flat earthers aren't generally scientists, they don't have access to vacuum chambers, and they also don't trust anyone who does have access to a vacuum chamber, which makes for a very convenient way for them to presume that the experiment would go the way that they're heavily emotionally invested in it going without them ever actually having to do the experiment. Now, you could make a half-decent argument that the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, the sky, all of it is all accelerating upwards at 9.81 meters per second to create the effect of gravity. That's actually the best approach, I think, but for some reason most flat earthers seem to think that that's a stupid idea, and to be fair, this would also need an eye-wateringly vast quantity of energy to work, so yeah, I don't know how you figure that part out. Regardless, there's always a lot of questions when it comes to the flat Earth model, like why are the motions of the planets explained perfectly by elliptical orbits around the sun if they're actually just spiraling around on a flat dome sky? What actually is the sky? Like, does space really not exist? Are all the stars just holes poked in the firmament illuminated by the shine from God's bald, polished head? If space is fake, where do rockets actually go after they launch? How do space agencies fake space stuff happening? Like, create the special effects of astronauts on the ISS floating, including some astronauts which have long hair. That's gotta be difficult to CGI on the spot, particularly when it's like live streamed for extended periods of time. How do they do that? And how advanced into your scientific career do you have to be before the Shadow Lords pull the curtain back and reveal that everything's fake and now you're not allowed to tell anyone? And how do they keep several million fake, qualified expert scientists quiet with an effectively 100% success record? What's actually below the Earth? Is that the Christian hell down there? Is it just a disk floating in space? I thought space didn't exist. What is it, floating in heaven? Hell? Limbo? Is the Earth sat on a giant pillar? What's the pillar sat on top of? Is it just turtles all the way down? And above all else, why the shitting fuck would anyone want to fake the shape of the Earth in the first place? So this is one of the most obvious displays of everything completely fucking stupid about conspiracy thinking as a whole. I think flat earthers are what happen when you decide to base your view of reality on whether or not you can literally see something right in front of you, and you actively decide to not put any mental effort into figuring out what's probably true just by logically deducing things based on the information you do have. Also helps if you're a total contrarian contrarian, you know, kind of person that only watches YouTube videos if they say science was wrong all along in the thumbnail. In fact, flat earth has now gone so far that there are flat earthers who now think that flat earth is too mainstream, and they think that the flat earth is part of a giant round earth. They've come full circle. What the fuck is happening? I was thinking of doing a segue into talking about Alderson disks, which are theoretically constructible space megastructures which kind of resemble a giant flat earth, but that's probably a big enough topic for another episode. Alderson disks are really fun to think about. Then again, they're also about as practical as a pair of clam chowder underpants currently patent pending. So to summarize, if you're a flat earther, find employment! Strive to do something constructive with your finite lifespan. Stop saying water always finds its level and start telling yourself you're gonna find some fucking bitches, alright? As always, thanks to my elite level supporters, Thunderbolt22810, who's a member of the Truncated Icosahedron Earth Society, Nomad Greg, who thinks the Earth is flat but only in non-Euclidean space, Andrew Mole, who has a big enough dog to catch the flat Earth in its mouth like a frisbee, John Bejarano, who dug straight down until he reached whatever the hell flat earthers think is down there and he named it Jeff, JDK, who thinks the Earth is no less flat than my ass and I'm still trying to figure out if that's a compliment or not, Mutantius Doom, who farted on the ice wall and initiated global warming, Stormester Ritter, who's a flat Milky Wayer, which is unironically kind of based, Nikita Lurie, who I'd swear did have a hilarious flat Earth related antic, I just can't seem to remember what it was right now, and Aaron Rowe, who's just happy to be here. And thanks to all my other supporters too. Don't forget to join the Patreon or the channel membership if you want to be featured in my video credits or chat on Discord, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.